I'm King Koopa, and I'm here to talk about Friday the 13th, Part 2. It's a movie, okay? Because today is Friday the 13th. It's pretty cool, and I think it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool movie. It's got some cringe elements that I don't really care for. But we'll get through the movie because overall, I found the movie entertaining. Your mileage with a movie like this will really depend on your tolerance for I guess deviant behavior, but it's really just one character, and he really does get his comeuppance, and it's kind of hilarious. Which is not an excuse for his behavior. It's just like, don't treat women like that, or you'll end up in this rope trap, and then you'll be hanging upside down like this, and then Jason will come through and he'll help you down.
Where is she?
The movie starts out with Sandra and Jeff driving the truck into town, and they're trying to pick up Ted, and they can't find him. And then when they stop to make a phone call, this guy, Crazy Ralph, he's like, "You're all doomed. I told the others." And, like, shut up, Ralph. Nobody asked you. So they go and they pick up Ted, and they go to the camp. And on the way to the camp, there's a log in the road, and they stop and get out. And then Ted and Jeff move the log while Sandra wanders off into the woods a little bit. Sandra says this.
Place is spooky. Looks like somebody dragged it out here. What's what?
So that should tell you what kind of movie we're dealing with, Koopas. All right. Sandra finds a sign that says Camp Crystal Lake. And Ted's like, "Oh, Camp Blood." Jason notices them from the woods. In this movie, he doesn't have his hockey mask. He's got a sack on his head. They call him Sackhead Jason. I'm just going to call him Jason because he's got a sack on his head. They get to the camp, and Sandra keeps talking to Jeff about wanting to go check out Camp Blood. And he keeps saying no. And she calls him names. So he decides to go. He goes with her into the woods. 2 seconds after they walk into the woods and they find this animal on the ground, it's not okay. It looked like somebody was eating it. We know it was Jason eating it because we saw him, but they didn't. There's an additional element of, I'll call it theatrical suspension of disbelief you're supposed to employ when watching this movie. Maybe some of the other ones, but I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about this one. Where you know that if you were in the character's perspective, like, you would very clearly see the person, like when Jason's watching from the bush and Ted was looking out the window, he literally would have seen him. However, like, that's not how you're supposed to, I guess, take it. Like, you're supposed to be like, the audience is being revealed that there's a guy there. And then there's an instance later in the movie where Jenny is under the bed and it looks like there's a light on her, and when Jason walks in the room from way over there, he would definitely see her. But it's fine. It's okay. Well, I mean, yeah, you can make fun of it because there's other instances where she just makes frustrating decisions. But we'll get there when we get there. Right after they find the animal, Sandra and Jeff are caught by a cop. This guy. And the cop takes them back. And he's like, "Oh, no one's allowed to be here. It's been 5 years. It's been 5 years, and it's been quiet. It's been quiet for 5 whole years." In the office with Paul, Paul's the boss. This is a camp where they train camp counselors to go be camp counselors at other camps. When the cop is driving out after he left from Paul's, office, like he left from the camp, he sees a guy run across the road. And as I previously mentioned about perspective, yeah, like he wasn't in the road, and then he was in the road and he was running through the woods, and then the cop stopped his cop car, put it in park, he got out, left the car on, left the door open, and then he took off into the woods after the guy that he saw running. The guy's Jason. I don't think this is a great idea, Koopas. I don't think you should chase Jason Voorhees through the woods. That's probably, I don't know, like if he's going the other way, you got a chance. He chased him through the woods for like 10 years. And when he finally gets to a cabin, he's like, ugh. And then he sees that Jason actually has a toilet. And as I was discussing with one of my friends, Jason is not apparently in the woods using squirrels for toilet paper, because that was pretty funny to think about. I'm not gonna lie. Well, Jason says hammer time, and then we cut back to the camp, and then they have a fireside chat, and it's ghost story time. Koopas! And the ghost story is actually about Jason Voorhees. And let me give it to you straight about Jason. These movies don't connect very well, so it's a sequel in a multiversal sense. Like, part 3 is a sequel to part 2 of a different Friday the 13th part 2. Not this one. Like that. For the whole series, basically. After that, everyone goes to bed. And in the morning, it's Friday the 13th. Like the movie. Not much happens throughout the day. They kind of hang out by the lake and go swimming and stuff. A little bit of, not character development, but like you spend time with the characters and you get to know them a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. And Jenny's all right. I think she's pretty cool. And then there's Vicky and Mark. And Vicky is like simping for Mark the whole time, being super duper obvious. Mark feels sorry for himself about his, situation. And he's not picking up on Vicky's very obvious, she likes him. And I'm just going to skim over this Revenge of the Nerds reject, Scott. He's a Revenge of the Nerds reject, and I don't want to go into any more detail than that. Then there's Terry, Scott's victim, but also Jason's victim, but you never see what happens to her. I mean, you see her body, but like she gets off-screened. On the night of Friday the 13th, everyone's hanging around, and Paul, the guy, like the boss guy, he says that everyone can go hang out and party or whatever before they really get into it. You know what I'm saying? I don't really know what that means. It seemed like they were doing what they'd be doing anyway, but I digress. Crazy Ralph is, he's being a creep, and he's being a real creep, I gotta be honest. And then Jason, he takes care of this creep. He takes the creep out, because we don't need that in this movie. No, sir. And then, the whole gang, most of the gang leaves. Like, there's a whole bunch of people that we barely see, and then we never see them again after this. So they all survive. They all survive the movie. The only main characters that go are Ted, Jenny, and Paul. But Jenny and Paul come back, but we'll get to that in just a minute. The people left behind are Sandra and Jeff, and Mark and Vicky. Sandra and Jeff go upstairs, and then that leaves Mark and Vicky downstairs because Mark kept beating Jeff in arm wrestling, even though Jeff was cheating. He was being a cheater. Mark and Vicky were playing these old sports games. Vicky rizzed up Mark, And then something about the Rizzler. The Rizzler came through, and then Vicky was like, "All right," and Mark was like, "All right." Like Vicky leaves, and then she gets changed, and over where Mark is, he gets a chop to the face, and he falls down the stairs in his wheelchair. And this has got to be probably one of the most iconic scenes in horror movie history. It looks really great. Vicky comes back up to the house looking for Mark, and then stop me if I'm being weird, Koopas, but this lady right here, Vicky, she's like, "Hey, Mark, where are you at, Mark?" After she was flirting with him for like 2 days now. This guy in a wheelchair, right? And she goes upstairs. Like, she goes upstairs to look. And then, like, she goes into Sandra and Jeff's room and she's like, "What's going on, guys?" And then Jason was under the sheet with Sandra, and I think she was dead. And then behind her, Jeff was definitely dead. He cuts her leg, and then he off-screens her. Vicky gets off-screened. Right about that time, Ginny and Paul rolled back up in her little VW bug. And they notice the lights are out and stuff. And they go up. They're looking around because, everyone's dead. Everyone's dead, so they don't hear anyone because, they don't talk. They see blood all over the bed, and they're like, "Ooh." And Paul's like, "Oh, they're probably playing a prank." And Ginny rightly says, "They wouldn't play a prank like this, Paul." So they go downstairs because they notice the lights are out. And Paul goes to flip the switch, and then Ginny notices that there's someone in the room in the dark because she could see him when the lightning flashed. And this is a pretty tense scene right here. It's pretty tense. I liked it. It also led me to the philosophy that in this particular movie, okay, Jason is an extremely effective ambush predator, but when he is face to face with someone even remotely near his strength level, he is not as effective at all. Even though he did get the drop on Paul, he was able to turn around and stop the pitchfork from getting him, and he experienced way more of a fight than I think Jason experienced in the entire movie. And then Ginny, oh man, Ginny, what are you doing? What are you literally doing, Ginny? While Paul and Jason were tussling, you need to find something extremely crunchy to bash over Jason's head. You're like, "Oh, they're spinning around. I don't know." You know what you do? You put your hand on dude's shoulder to anchor yourself to him, and then you just bang, 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 bang. No, no. No, ma'am. No. I reject that hypothesis. Anywho, Ginny leaves Paul to die, and she goes out to her bug, her VW bug, which hasn't started right the whole movie, by the way. It's not like, oh, it's not working because it's a horror movie. It's like, it hasn't worked the whole movie. Like, it's established. It's in the lore, Koopas. You gotta respect the lore, like the producers of this film series did not. Jason attacks Ginny, and then she runs off into the woods and finds the cabin where Jason said hammer time to the cop earlier. The cop and Terry's bodies are in this shrine with Jason's mom's decapitated head from the first movie, and it's looking like some beef jerky. I don't think I'd eat it, and I don't think you should try to eat Jason's mom's 5-year-old decapitated head either, even though she was a jerk. She puts on Jason's mom's sweater, and when he busts in, I guess he believes that it's his mom. Yeah, Jason's not very smart. And she tricks him, and then he remembers that, like, his mom is actually dead, and there's her head right there. So he uses a pickaxe to block the machete. And then Paul comes in like an absolute Chad, but he really just wanted to ask why she left him alone. Like, Jason was dealing with her now. Like, he already dealt with Jason. Now it's her turn. But anyway, Paul came in and helped, and he attacked Jason. And then Jenny chopped him in the shoulder, and then he fell down. And then they went back. They went back to the cabin, like the main cabin, I guess Paul's cabin, and they chill, and then jump scare through the window and credits. This is quite a bit longer than my other reviews, Koopas. And there was no gags. It was just straight to the point. I'm not sure about this. Let me know what you think of this new style, new length. I don't know if I'll do this again. I did it because it's Friday the 13th, and I love the movies. Remember, Koopas, be kind to people you have no reason to be kind to. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And I want you to have a nice day.